telling you, we talk about long-running franchises on this channel, but the fifth entry in the Ballad universe, starting with the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, followed by the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, then the Ballad of a Songbird, the Ballad of Wallace Island earlier this year, and now, well, this one.
I am so confused.
So many ballads. Ballad of a Small Player is now on Netflix. I had a chance to watch this a couple of days ago. We're going to talk about it. Colin Farrell and the director of last year's Oscar-nominated movie Conclave.
Macau, gambling capital of the universe. Here, card games can change your life.
So, when his past and debts start to catch up with him, a high-stakes gambler laying low encounters a kindred spirit who might just hold the key to his salvation. This is a rampant, upbeat, bright, neo-noir, big-time departure from what we know Edward Berger to be as a filmmaker. I mentioned Conclave, but my favorite, All Quiet on a Western Front, and Netflix movie, by the way, was outstanding. I was blown away by that film, and that was another one that I got to witness on the big screen. Now, I did see Ballad of a Small Player on a smaller screen, my television, like a lot of people will on Netflix when it drops. But this is definitely one of those movies that leans on the aesthetics, the visuals, the style. Some will say style over substance, but the style of this movie is awesome, and it's very flashy, showy, the showcase of neon lights and the reflections, the insane editing, the camera angles. It reminds you of our main character, and Colin Farrell does such a wonderful job of playing a man who is just at the end of his rope constantly throughout this film, addicted to gambling. He's not even very good because of how his character handles going about his business all throughout this movie, and you start to realize who this guy actually is, and not necessarily a guy you can trust with anything. I mean, he has multiple personalities in this movie, but he is someone who is, again, just desperate. And this time of desperation is not coming easy because there are people who are after him and who are needing money from him that essentially, well, he can't really pay back because, again, he sucks at gambling.
He stinks, and I don't like him.
But it almost feels like he's just as addicted to losing as he is winning, and will do whatever it takes, will lie to whoever it takes. And so many characters in this film. Tilda Swinton pops up at a point, and you get some very interesting conversations, but she continues to tell him, you are not a good person, regardless of how you try to persuade me, win me over, lie to me. It's not working. There's no trust here, and that's pretty much the case with every character, albeit there is one character and one little subplot they try to throw in here, a character by the name of Dao Ming. It's very ominous, ambiguous as to the role that she plays, not only in this story, but in this man's life, and there are some revelations later on in the film that were very... Again, I want to use the word vague, but honestly just kind of up in the air with how the audience is going to interpret this story and this aspect of his life. And I'm not going to say they lacked chemistry entirely, but I did want a bit more of that on screen. And for some of these more subtle moments and emotional moments and conversations with those two specifically, you could say the same thing with his conversations with Tilda Swinton. I was also asking a lot of questions like, what is and is not reality, and this man that is, again, just at the end of his physical limits, his emotional limits, because this addiction has become so prominent and frankly destroyed his life. He's in with the wrong people, this and that, and he doesn't really know what to do. The idea of him never being satisfied, there's a, I'll say, interesting scene of him just stuffing his face of all the food that he can find, the idea of gluttony and how you can kind of tie that into the very obvious themes that they're going for, but he's also not very smart. He's insecure. He doesn't have the skill set to be good at what he's so desperate to be doing, and he's spiraling out of control in that way, and so they show us that on screen in so many different ways, throughout so many different scenes, to the point to where it did start to become a little tedious and repetitive. And again, I wanted this story to match up to the aesthetic. I wanted this story to match up to, like, on paper, this guy's life is really interesting, but with the way it's being handled and told to us, and there are moments where you don't really know his mindset in its entirety. We don't know how much time has passed and what the timeline is in general. It just starts to become a little too confusing. And I'll give Edward Berger props because this is such a drastic departure. I mean, a 180 from Conclave. This movie has to do something to get you on board with the actions, but it becomes tiring after a while. Maybe I felt while watching Ballad of a Small Player how people were telling me they felt during Uncut Gems watching Adam Sandler's character. He just keeps going and going, digging himself into a deeper hole, and that is exactly, again, addiction to gambling. Very similar themes in this film, just showcased very differently and way more fantastical than a movie like Uncut Gems. But I felt that way while watching this character, like, buddy, you just need to slow it down, relax, and he never does that.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
This kind of feels like the way that it's put together and edited and the crazy visuals, it kind of feels like Elvis. So in that way, like a Baz Luhrmann movie, is Edward Berger doing a Baz Luhrmann impression here, which, you know, I didn't love how overwhelming Elvis was, and so maybe that's why I'm kind of feeling the same way about Ballad of a Small Player. The difference is this is a character that, well, I guess Elvis was kind of spiraling too. Maybe more similar than I thought.
Oh, shit, I'm sorry.
Look, the cast is good. Swinton's rock solid. I didn't need more from her character. I needed more from really all the supporting characters. Colin Farrell is just laying it on so thick on screen, and the guy is incredible in pretty much everything he does. Once again, phenomenal here. It's just hard to get invested in a character like this and pushing it to the end of his ropes. And maybe if I read the book, I'm going to feel differently about the way the movie was put together, and maybe it was showcased perfectly, but my brain was a little scrambled by the time I got to the end of this film, and I know they're going for something with the ending that's supposed to hit hard. I didn't quite get there emotionally, so even the most rousing part of this movie didn't really work for me. And so it's a film that I really struggled to get super invested in from start to finish. I was never as overwhelmed as I needed to be with emotion. I was just kind of overwhelmed with the visuals and the story, which is not good. So a few questions here. What's your favorite Ballad movie? Well, there are plenty. Your favorite Colin Farrell performance. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to share the link, drop the like, leave a comment, please. I would love to hear your thoughts. Ballad of a Small Player features an incredible neo-noir aesthetic, some stylistically intriguing sequences, and a committed lead performance from Colin Farrell. It's such a drastic departure for Berger, and it almost feels as if they are throwing too much at the fan. From a story standpoint, the script feels as jumbled and chaotic as Farrell's Doyle. There is something profound about his journey on paper, but the execution of trying to tell this story falls short of its ambitions, and I will say ambitious is a word to use. I don't know if it fully describes what this film is, and so would you compare this journey of addiction to something like Uncut Gems? I mean, we've seen plenty of similar stories, and are you familiar with the source material? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. All right, what are you watching on Netflix? See you soon.